Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane, and I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library. If you've been here for a minute, you know that Jennifer and I get along very well, and we have lots to talk about. But today we are talking about AI because Jennifer is the founder of WebGlow AI, and she had a presentation with us a few months ago, which we had lots of questions, which she answered, but we had lots more questions that we didn't get to. So we're very excited to have Jennifer back today to talk about the things that we didn't get to and questions that came up in the meantime. So just a couple things. I want to say thanks to the Friends of the Ashland Public Library who support all of our programming. And Jennifer did allow us to share this program with other libraries. And again, when libraries get together, we make magic. And I know that's jazz hands. I know that's not right, but it's magic. But we all, when I love working with other libraries, I love that we're all working together now for these kind of things. So Jennifer is, like I said, the founder of WebGlow AI. She has been my technology guru for many, many years. I can ask her anything and she will know the answer. And if not, she totally figures it out. And I love that. So Jennifer, welcome back. I'm so happy to see you and to be having this really important conversation again.
Well, thank you so much, Mina, and thank you all for inviting me back. I had so much fun at the last one, and I absolutely loved how engaging the conversations were, and being able to talk more about AI was fantastic. So what I'm gonna do is I have a presentation. I'm gonna set up my screen share right now. Let's see, so the plan here is for me to talk about AI, kind of do like a basic recap for about 20 to 30 minutes. And then we're going to open up for questions because we had a lot of questions the last time. And I really want to know what's on everyone's mind and what you're thinking about, and see if I can answer questions. So a little bit about myself. I have 15 years of experience working as a web designer. I worked as a web designer and a usability specialist for higher ed, libraries, art institutions, and nonprofits. And then recently I branched out to becoming an entrepreneur and founding my own web design company. I have a lot of experience teaching technology classes to both students and also librarians. And I'm going to talk a little bit about WebGlow AI, but just in general, we do web design and we also do AI education. So I'm going to start off with a story. My family and I went to the Dinosaur State Park in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. It was really cool. And actually, when we went, we were thinking that it was just going to be like a small park and we'd just be there for like an hour. But to my surprise, inside of the state park, there was actually an augmented sandbox, which was super cool. It's not the first time I've seen an augmented sandbox, but it was the first time I saw an augmented sandbox that had all the bells and whistles and features that this one had. And so basically, if you're not familiar with an augmented sandbox, it's like a sandbox where it actually is like interacting with the amount of sand that you're either taking away or you're adding. So it's kind of like interacting with your movements in the sandbox. And so, for instance, if you wanted to make a volcano, all you have to do is like make a little sand mountain and it would make a volcano. And then if you are like digging into the sand, it might create like a river. So this one at the Dinosaur State Park is amazing because it has like a fossil world, and then it transitions into one that's like insects, and then it transitions into one that was, I believe, was like African animals. And so when we were there, of course, my I have two children. They absolutely loved it. They were playing in it for hours. And I realized if they took this augmented sandbox and they integrated some AI, meaning let's say that they let my children actually type in a prompt, like let's say they wanted their sandbox to be Pokemon, let's say, or let's say they want to be Mario, it would make it even more awesome, right? And so then I went home and I Googled this, and this is a thing. They're saying that AI is going to be integrated into more things like augmented reality in the future, which just makes everything so cool. It's so fascinating to think about all of the ways that AI is going to touch our lives and make things even better. And so the last time I talked a lot about how AI tools can help enhance productivity, creativity, and wellness. And today's presentation is a bit shorter, so we're going to talk about that a little bit, but I'm going to share some of my favorite tools, and then I'm also going to talk about some resources, and then, like I said, we're going to jump right into the Q&A. So a little bit about my company. Like I said, we do a lot of web design projects, and some of those include AI integration. Some of them don't. We still do web design projects that don't have any AI in them at all. I do some AI tool consulting, and then we also offer AI courses. All right, so here's the intro. So I am including a basic definition of AI, which is artificial intelligence leverages computers and machines to mimic the problem-solving and decision-making capabilities of the human mind. So some examples of AI that you all might be familiar with are self-driving cars, natural language processing, online shopping, and social media. Online shopping and social media is actually are examples of what they would call invisible AI. So it's not always so apparent that there's actually AI behind the scenes, but there is. And what's going on here with online shopping, social media, is that the AI is actually able to tell from user behavior what your interests are. And so it's actually feeding you like products that it thinks you might like. For in the case of social media, it might realize like, oh, this person, let's say, is, liberal and they really enjoy library books. And so it might be feeding you more and more of that content. So I think it's really important to make a distinction between general AI and narrow AI, because well, my experience in, teaching about AI is that a lot of people kind of wrongly think that we're sort of in a general AI world. And I think that the media is doing a really, really great job trying to convince people of this. And so I think it's really important people realize that general AI is just not the place that we're in right now. We're in what we would call narrow AI. So to draw the distinction between general AI and narrow AI, general AI is what you would think of if you think about a robot that's really, really intelligent. They would have like a human-like intelligence, let's say, common sense reasoning. They can do what's called transfer learning, which means they can learn one thing and they can transfer that knowledge to something that's completely different. There could be an emphasis on self-improvement. There's some sort of consciousness. There's a human level ability to be able to communicate. You could adapt to unforeseen situations. You can make ethical and moral decisions. And then there's a lot of creativity that could happen there. So if you think of like C3PO, we're think that would be like general AI, right? Narrow AI, though, is where we find ourselves in right now, as far as like this explosion that's happened in the AI world recently. So narrow AI is really just the AI is able to perform really specific tasks in a specific domain. And so the tasks it's able to perform are really, really limited. So it's going to have a limited ability to learn. So like it is able to improve and it's able to adapt, but it's really, really limited. It has no common sense reasoning. It's not able to think like the way a person could think. It's very, very domain specific. So it could perform one task and kind of do that task over and over again. Sometimes, I don't think this is the perfect analogy, but sometimes I like to compare narrow AI to like a calculator, because a calculator can perform a narrow, limited, like mathematical task, and it can perform it really well. It could probably perform mathematical equations faster than you and I, right? But that's all the calculator can do. There's no self-improvement, and it does rely, at least for right now, on a human to write a prompt in order to perform the task. There's no consciousness or self-awareness, so you don't have to worry about like these doomsday scenarios. Has limited ability to communicate and understand, and has difficulty with novelty. There's no ethical judgment and has limited creativity. So how does this work? There's this one analogy that I really like, because I feel like it, waters it down and kind of makes it more understandable. And I actually took this analogy from Google has a website called AIY, which is supposed to be like do it yourself mixed with AI. It's kind of creative. There's an engineer on there and he's talking about AI and he explains AI in a interesting way where he says, imagine that you are creating a dog door that could recognize animal faces. And in the beginning, all this door can do really is just sort of recognize if something's a face, or let's say like it's just like leaves, blowing in the wind. But then at some point, with better training and more data in your data set, is able to become more and more sophisticated. So maybe it can distinguish between a dog's face and a cat face, or maybe it can even distinguish between one breed of dog and another breed of dog. So kind of how this works in a general sense is that it's code that's perceiving environment, detecting patterns, and then it's making updates based on the data that it receives. And oh, is this a dog? Is this not a dog? Like it's able to sort of become better and better and better as it's recognizing more faces and solving the different problems. So what are some pros and cons with AI? Some of the pros, I think a lot of people are aware of. It's worth bringing up. There's a lot of efficiency there. There's ability for AI to be perform tasks in an automated way. There could be a reduction in human error, but I think it's important for people to know that it's not perfect. It's definitely tasks that could become solutions to real world problems. There could be improved decision making because AI can do a fairly good job with making predictions. There's a cost savings aspect of this. And then of course there's creative potential, but like I said, the creative potential is limited. So those are some of the pros. Some of the cons are that it's not perfect. There's definitely privacy concerns. There's issues with, job security. There could be misinformation with AI. There's definitely copyright concerns. There is bias with any AI that's built, and there's safety and security risks. I know during last presentation, we got a lot of questions about security and safety and privacy and all that. And so I'm just going to say that the recommendation that we give is to never enter anything into an AI that could be information that you don't want to be sharing. So for instance, anything like personal sensitive data, like you don't want to write into an AI, like your social security number. I would say anything like your birthday, just things like that, information like that, where you just wouldn't want to just share it with anyone. I would never, ever enter it into an AI. So this slide is about development considerations. I'm going to explain a little bit what's going on here, but I'm just going to say that I didn't make the slides to really talk about the AI development. I created a slide so that people can get a better sense of like what's really going on with AI, particularly if you're scared of AI replacing your job. So I thought this was really, really interesting. This slide actually comes from a course, which I'm going to talk about more, created by Andrew Ng. It's actually free on Coursera. And he talks a lot about how an AI development team decides whether or not to build an AI. So one of the first criteria that they use is that in order for an AI team to develop an AI, first, the AI has to be able to be feasible. It has to be technically feasible. So, because not every data set can be turned into an AI, but it also has to be valuable for a business. And so they actually do an audit and they see if the AI is actually going to make a business money, right? So this is actually a really interesting point. How do you know if an AI is feasible? So Andrew Ng says that this is not a rule that works for everything, but it's an interesting rule. He says if it requires more than 1 second of thought, then the AI probably cannot be developed. And that's really interesting because it's like the task, he says, has to be really simple. It has to just be like 1 second. So an example of this is, could we create, let's say, a cat face from the text, message cat. And when you hear the word cat, you could like think of a cat face in a second, right? So then that kind of passed this test. But if the test requires more thinking, then Andrew's saying there's no way that the AI could even be developed, more than likely, right? So it's interesting to think of it that way. And hopefully this AI development becomes less scary for people. Another consideration that AI teams talk about when they're, discussing whether or not they actually want to develop an AI are ethical issues. So if they feel that an AI is unethical in any way, then they will not develop it, or it's recommended that they don't develop it. And they actually recommend that there's an ethical audit that's set up for this. Another thing that's interesting, which is why I'm including it in here, is that the AI team say that they absolutely will not develop an AI that replaces a job or a role or a position in a company. They only develop AI tools that will replace a task, a limited task, right? And they said that they actually will go to CEOs, and when the CEO goes, "Oh, well, I really want to, develop an AI that will replace this job," they immediately say, "No, no, no, no. You have to look at tasks, not jobs, positions, or roles." Another thing that's interesting about this is they say if there's an industry standard product that's already in place, they also don't want to develop the AI. And the quote that they give, which I think is interesting, is they say, "We don't want to run against a train." Another thing that's interesting about this is that data sets are really important for developing AIs. And they always make sure that there's no copyright issues with the data set. And I know that this is brought up a lot. Like there's a lawsuit against an image generator called Midjourney. People were accusing them of having, copyright issues with like the images that they were getting. But this AI team is saying, look, if the company doesn't really own the data set, then we will not consider moving forward. And then also not all data sets are able to be turned into AI. And that's actually a more complicated, if the data set can be used for an AI or not. And I recommend, if you want to learn more about that, that you take Andrew's free course. So here are some of my favorite tools that I recommend that everybody use. So for this slide, I talk about ChatGPT. I recommend ChatGPT as like the #1 tool that I think people should at least try, and you can actually use it for a lot of stuff. I gave kind of like a step-by-step in case you haven't used ChatGPT. It's pretty simple. Just go on OpenAI, you create a new account. You'll see it's a pretty simple interface, which is great because it's really user-friendly. And on the bottom here, there's like a box. It says send a message. You can type in anything. You could ask it to write a poem. Um, they actually have created these little blocks here so that if you don't know what to write, it says give me ideas. And so there's an example that says what to do with my kids' art. And one of the I would say recommendations I would give with this is to just be really specific and concrete. And then also when you type in a prompt, you can resubmit it. So if you type in and you type something in and you get like a really bizarre, weird response, you can always, reformulate your prompt and keep regenerating until you get something that you like. So along with ChatGPT, there's also a rise of virtual assistants. There's one that's called Pi.ai, and there's another one called Replica. And then, of course, there's sort of an explosion in AI tools. And so there's tools for productivity, like being able to schedule appointments, setting reminders. There's also some really cool tools that can help with creativity. And then there, of course, there's other ones with wellness, like creating a personalized health and wellness plan, creating exercise schedule. There's a lot of really, really cool tools out there. I really recommend this one called Replica. It's marketed as like an AI that cares, but I thought it was interesting because it has a lot of like journaling prompts, and there's a little bit, if you ever try this, of like a video game feel with it, where there's the AI, you can like create the person to look how you want. You can like give them the name that you want or whatever, but that person talks to you. So instead of just writing to a prompt, you feel like you're writing more to a person who's helping you. And another reason why I was sort of fascinated by Replica is I thought, although I don't think that we are at the point at all where any of these AIs can truly replace any type of expert or worker, because people do so many tasks and jobs are so involved. I did feel like Replica was sort of the closest that I could come to, maybe like a customer service person, perhaps like a counselor or librarian. And so I found it to be really interesting in that way. Another tool that I really like that I've been using more and more, and I highly recommend, is called Uizard. It's a cool website that has AI embed inside of it and has like collaborative whiteboards, ability to do prototyping and wireframing, and all different kinds of cool stuff. And I use it a lot for brainstorming. So I highly recommend this tool. And another thing I'll say is that Uizard, I feel like there's going to be more and more tools like this cropping up, um, with this like, kind of cool interface where you have the ability to do stuff, but at the same time, you're able to type in the AI prompt and it's able to kind of like create sort of a nice working draft right from the very beginning that you can like then go ahead and keep editing. Of course, I absolutely love the AI image generators, and I've been doing more and more stuff with them recently. My two favorite right now are Midjourney, and I really like DALL-E and Stable Diffusion. Stable Diffusion is cool because they have a part of it where when you create an image, you can actually try to turn that image into an animation. So that's super fun. Um, if you are concerned at all about Midjourney and whether or not they ethically used their images in the data set, like ethically. Then there's another one called Dream Up. It's by DeviantArt. It's not as good as Midjourney right now, but with time, it probably will get better and better. And Dream Up has said that they used all the images in their data set with artist permission. And so it's kind of like a nice ethical way of creating images with AI. There are some really fantastic design tools out there. I really like this one called Canvas by NVIDIA because you can just turn like simple brush strokes or simple drawings into like more elaborate landscapes and drawings. So it's super fun to use. Auto Draw is a more simple tool, and actually you can kind of see how rough it is just by using it. So in other words, you could start drawing a dog and it actually might suggest something that looks like a dog but different. But one of the reasons I like auto draw is I feel like it's a really great way to just sort of dip your toe in and get a sense of how AI works. So when I talked about like the pros and cons, you can see how AI is not perfect just by using auto draw. So if you ever wanted to do an AI demo like for school children or something, I would totally recommend using auto draw. There's another platform that I really like called Deep Dream Generator, and it creates really cool fantasy pictures based off of photos that you've uploaded. And it's using AI to do that. So there's all different sorts of writing tools. You don't just have to use ChatGPT for writing. There's writing tools on the market that can give you a lot of writing for free that have specific like purposes. So for instance, Jasper does like a consistent text, branded text using AI. And so some of these are really, really cool to play around with and have fun with. And I have started to use these more and more. So the reason I'm talking about this stuff is because I want people to realize that it's not just the AI that you're creating on the platform, but what are kind of like some really specific projects that you could actually make or do like as you're creating this stuff. And so when it comes to the image generators, I think there's actually a lot of really fun stuff you can do that's kind of crafty with these images. And so for myself personally, I've used Midjourney to create coloring sheets. You can make really cool decorative papers with scrapbooking. Um, and some of these things do require like a little bit more of training when you're on Midjourney, because like for instance, there's a code, it's like / tile that actually lets you create patterns. But the truth is there's a lot of really cool articles online that explain how to make some, these more specific projects. And there's also a lot of YouTube videos that explain how to do this. So like for the coloring sheets, I literally have to put that I want, children's like illustrations, say what theme I want, and then say that I want it in black and white. And if I suggest coloring sheet, it will produce a pretty good coloring sheet. You can also do like vintage prints and art prints, which is super fun. You could use these images for wrapping paper. I've done a lot of stuff with paper dolls. Um, you can create logos and icons. I would just be cautious about that, particularly if you're creating a logo for a business. Um, you know, there's there could be like, copyright issues. So one thing that I recommend designers do is you could use it to create like a rough draft, or, to give it to a graphic designer as an idea, but it probably shouldn't be like the last like draft, or like, the final design that you create. Um, People are using these illustrators more and more for illustrations for children's books. And if you go on Amazon, you'll see this. And then also you can use these illustrators to create print on demand products, which is becoming more and more popular. Some of my favorite AI resources, if you want to dive more into AI and learn more about it, there's a course that's free online, and it's on Coursera. David Eng, it's called David Eng teaches it, and it's called AI for Everyone. And it has like 5 different modules. The first module is fantastic for getting a better sense of AI, like for like just a better AI introduction, learning more about AI. And then I think it's like the second module, it's a little bit more geared towards CEOs of companies trying to figure out if they could actually develop an AI or not based on their data set. So then, so that might not apply to everyone, but I really, really like the first module of his course. Then there are people out there who want to learn more about AI, and they don't just want introduction. They actually want to learn how to code an AI using Python. For that, I would recommend the Elements of AI. It's a course that I believe Google has created. It's free, it's online. It's fantastic. And the first module, the first part of it is just basic introduction. There's no coding involved. And then as you keep progressing, you can actually learn how to code an AI using Python. Um, and then a place where that I really like to go get free AI tools and just kind of, play around and see kind of, what's available now would be, it's called topai.tools.com. It's a directory of AI tools. And it's a lot of fun because they have different ways that you can sort through tools. So for instance, if I was interested in creating music, I might click on the audio button, and then it would, give me all these different AI tools that are available. And the other reason why I love this top AI tools is because they have like a way where you can separate free tools from paid tools. And so oftentimes when I'm working on projects, I'll go to the free tools first and see, what I can create just by using a free tool. And then if I'm working on something more advanced, and I'll think about if I need a tool that's paid for. So I'm going to end by with a quote from actually Andrew Ng. He says, "I want an AI powered society because I see so many ways that AI can make human life better. We can make so many decisions more systematically, or automate away repetitive tasks and save so much human time." And of course, I totally agree with this. I feel that the pros of AI outweigh the cons, and that there's a lot of potential here to use these tools to make our work better. And then, also just to make our jobs and our lives more fun, more interesting. And so, of course, um, I advocate for in an intentional way, thinking about whether or not you could use these tools in your own work or in your own life. So thank you. We're going to open it up now for our Q&A.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was
Okay.
awesome. I do want people to put their questions in the Q&A so that
Okay.
I can easily follow and not lose anybody. Um, the Q&A button is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So I have to ask you, Jennifer, about
Yeah.
before I get to audience questions, because
Yeah.
we already have a few. So the SAG-AFTRA strike just ended, and a big part of that was that stars didn't want studios to be able to use their images in AI to, make movies essentially. So I don't know if you followed it too much, but like, when we talk about like deep fakes and things like that, where is
Yeah.
that in terms of the use of AI to uh, deal out misinformation?
Yeah. So, I mean, from a purely ethical considerations, right? The By and large, of course, the recommendation is that you don't use anything, you don't create anything with an AI that would be a violation of copyright or trademark, right? So you're not supposed to, um, and of course, like, how do I say this? I think with like political figures and with some different situations, it could be like different. But what they'll say to artists that are using AI is they'll say, do not create artwork that's directly imitating a specific artist. Don't create anything that is using a character that's trademarked. So, for instance, when I'm on Midjourney, I know that I'm not supposed to create something that looks like Pokemon. I mean, I just know that, right? And I'm also, if I create something that looks like Pokemon, maybe it's okay for me to use it in just in a personal project, but I'm not gonna go out and sell it, right? Because that's a copyright and like the trademark issue, right? The truth is, though, what you're talking about, Mina, with the misinformation and the deep fakes and all that, is that there's a rise in scams that are occurring and like fraudulent behavior. And the deep fakes is a very concerning thing because it's really, really hard to look at something and know that if it's real or not, right? I know we talked about this a little bit at the last session where I said, I would just use a lot of like caution there because it really is deceptive. It's extremely deceptive, right? I think that there's going to have to be more regulation and probably more government like crackdown on some of this stuff. But the truth is it can happen. And so um it's hard because I think that, there are professionals out there that are ethical and they're trying to do the right thing, like myself, right? And we're all really aware of where we can go with AI and where we can't or where we shouldn't, where it would start being unethical. But I would say we can't, I mean, scams and frauds happen, right? So I would just be really cautious with that. And I think the on some level, people are becoming more and more aware that there probably needs to be more policing going on. There probably needs to, right? Um, and actually it's interesting because I just had attended a couple weeks back a fraud workshop and it was run by a bank and they were talking about all the different ways they can scam you. And of course, it's really scary. I mean, like there's just so many ways that scam artists are out there trying to take your money. And when I was in that workshop, the the woman who was giving it said, we're seeing a rise in this, and we're also seeing it becoming more sophisticated, and we're seeing like more AI integration. And of course, actively at the bank, they're flagging these things. And sometimes they even call the police, right? And I couldn't even see being there with my work with AI. I can see how when you couple AI with something that's a scam, I can see how it's just so deceptive. And in my opinion, I think libraries in the future are probably going to have to run more of these scam and like fraud protection workshops, but really talk about how um, it's just becoming so much more dangerous with it being coupled with AI.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love how you actually talk about AI in terms of being a tool. And that's kind of like what I'm going to stick to. Although Liz does
Yeah.
ask if there are any regulatory agencies yet to make sure that there's oversight around AI, or is that just it's still in development?
It's still in development, but what I will say when I watched Andrew Ng's free course on Coursera, I think it's called. Um, he was talking a lot about how, and of course, they're a professional team of AI developers, right? He was talking a lot about how they do audits, they do ethical audits, and they really make sure that the data set that they're working with, as well as whatever AI they're going to implement, is ethical. And that actually gave me a lot of hope because I thought, well, although not every AI team is regulated, they're creating like standard practices where they really want the AI engineers and the people who are developing these AIs to really think about that. And I believe Andrew just created a book that's specifically written for AI teams and AI engineers. And of course, he has a whole like, he talks a lot about ethics. So that definitely makes me feel a little bit better that I know that a lot of the AI engineers and teams that are working with the really big companies are really considering ethics as far as these like, more, bodies where people are really regulating stuff. I believe that that's all happening. It's all in development and even laws. And of course, I'm sure people are aware, like it always takes the government a while, right? And to create the laws and legislation's a really slow process. But I believe that we're probably going to see more and more legislation in the future. And even just things as simple as, is it okay or can an author have a book copyright, get a book copyright in their name? And they used a lot of AI, like things even just that simple.
Yeah. Two quick questions. One is,
Yeah.
can you share your slides afterwards so that I can send it
Oh,
out? A
absolutely.
bunch of people
Yep,
have been
I'll do
asking.
that.
And somebody asked they would love to see your creations, and I bet you they can see them on your website.
Yeah, so my website, I have courses on my website and I have web designs and stuff. My creations, I haven't. So actually, a lot of my creations are sort of living on Discord.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, wait, she actually means
yeah.
your work on what purpose she had on it. We'll have to dig into that a little bit later,
Okay.
because I'm not quite sure what that means. So let me go into the questions that we're getting, and
Sure.
we'll just kind of get through as many as we can. David
Sure.
says or asks, can you recommend an AI app that edits writing to a greater degree than spell check or grammar check? Because I'd like something that helps make writing more concise and sharper. For example, point out redundancies or ideas out of order or confusing.
Yeah, so actually I would go on the top aitools.com and find it there. And I know that that type of thing really exists a lot. I can also say that I still think that Grammarly is a really great tool. And I think that I believe what I've heard is that Grammarly is actively having more AI integration in Grammarly.
Mhm.
And so sometimes even for my own writing, I would use, I might not go to a separate, I might just use Grammarly because Grammarly is, typically tends to be really great at what it does. Another thing I'll say though, because this actually just came up in my own life, is I would be careful. I would be careful about the type of how do I say this? Like, I'd be really intentional about when you're going to use AI for writing, because sometimes if you write somebody an email and you use AI, there are ways that you can copy the text and you can put it in like an AI checker and it will come up as that a bot wrote it, not a human. And the other thing too about AI is typically when it does writing, it can just almost seem like a little too perfect. And so I think there have been instances where somebody's actually written to me using AI and I thought they were scamming me. Like I didn't. And so sometimes I've even been like, particularly if it's somebody that I've never met, I'll say, oh, can we take this to a Zoom call just to make sure that it's not a
Yeah.
scam? Right. And so there are times where I feel like using AI is actually perfect. And for my work, I'm writing a blog post, let's say, writing an e-newsletter, sometimes using AI is perfect for those instances because I can be consistent with my brand voice and I can get a lot done. And, you know, but sometimes in other writing instances where you need the more personal touch, like if it's an email, if it's a testimonial, I would actually say, write it out in your own human way. And if it's not perfect, then maybe that's not a bad thing because that person realizes it's coming from you,
An
right?
actual person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody asks, have you tried the new Brave browser AI?
I have not. And the only reason I haven't is because there's been such an explosion of tools. But I'm gonna write that down and try it because I absolutely love trying any new tools. And the other thing too is people are constantly throwing new tools at me. So it's a
I would
lot.
imagine. Rebecca has this comment. I just attended the Photoshop convention. The AI is so amazing. Now the consensus seems to be it's not right to generate a whole picture and call it your own, but it's okay to
Okay.
generate elements and put them together in your own way.
Okay. So yeah, that is really, I would say that is a fantastic guideline, you know. Um, I think so. I don't disagree with that at all. And in fact, I think that those types of standards within different industries is actually really important. And I wonder if I my thinking is that that probably needs to exist more in the writing world too. It's tricky because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs and people that are just really busy and they like are loving AI because they're thinking, oh, I didn't have to hire that copy, but I definitely think that, I agree with that. And I think that those kind of guidelines, those need to be developed more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Philip says, can you discuss AI in connection with data mining? Are there any specialized AI tools for data mining? What are they? And to what extent is AI being employed for data mining?
So data mining is an area where I am less familiar with. I am pretty sure that there have to be tools out there for data mining, but that's just not an area that I dive into.
Mhm.
I would try the top AI tools and see if they have a section for data mining and then see what kind of tools. My gut instinct though is that there has to be, and AI probably does a good job with it because AI typically does a really good job with data, sorting it, making it predictions. That's an area where AI excels at, and particularly even in like the analytics sphere. So I can't speak specifically to data mining, but I'll just say that, yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of really great tools out there for that.
Mhm. But I think what you had said last time, which I thought was really
Yeah.
interesting, is it doesn't matter like the data mining itself. Let's say what you're,
Yeah.
but the prompt that you put into the tool that you're using. So it really depends on the person to get what you need out of AI and whatever tool or information you're trying to put together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the more, am I saying this correctly?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. So Eva says, what tool could I use for scraping information from a list of websites and put it into a spreadsheet? Do I need to code or is it a tool for that? Trying to offload some mechanical works.
That's tricky. That's a trickier task, honestly. And I'm not sure if AI is the best for that because my experience with scraping information typically would be creating some sort of a bot, which is more complicated programming. I think one thing that maybe like if I was approaching that project, one thing I might try is just going to ChatGPT and asking it to code me a program that could scrape data from a website. But then I'll just say my husband is a software engineer and he has told me that ChatGPT, I mean, you just can't fully trust it. And I'll also say like I have used ChatGPT to see if I would be interested in using it to create knitting patterns. And when I do, it's not necessarily 100% wrong, but it's really good at giving you like a plausible answer. So I would know, like I just would assume I have to test whatever pattern it's giving me. So even if you asked ChatGPT to create some sort of a program code to scrape and whatever you want to scrape, you have to sort of look at it. You might have to take it to a software engineer, right? And to know if that code's really going to work. So that's why I say like AI can't really replace experts. It can't really replace people's jobs yet, right? Because probably what needs to happen is somebody needs to code some sort of a scraping get bought. And so, I mean, the truth is there's so many tools coming up daily that I hesitate to be like, oh no, that doesn't exist because it might. I'm not familiar with that um tool yet. But then the other thing is if I follow Andrew Ng's principle, where if it takes you more than a second of thought, it probably can't be an AI tool. And scraping information from a website, it may be something that could happen in the future, but right now I think AI might not really be there yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, Eva also asks, do you present at college to college communities?
Yeah, I totally can. So my predominantly I've been teaching AI to librarians, and it's actually public librarians, although there can be academic librarians. Um, I'll say that I am the vice president right now of the New England Library Association. We have an academic section of the organization. And so I totally can present to colleges,
Mhm.
or professors or whatnot.
So I'm just going to tell Eva
Yeah.
that you can do anything. Jennifer can do anything.
Thank you,
So
Mina.
it doesn't matter where it is. You just tell her what you need and she'll make it happen. That's at least my experience of you.
Oh, thank you.
So, a couple of people, Irina and Wendy, want to know about potential bad actors in the AI field. Like, how can you know that something's AI generated? You had mentioned earlier that, you would try to Zoom with somebody, but like for an email that's AI generated, is there any way, like, how like on an iPhone, it'll say, generated by my iPhone or whatever like that. Is there any way for us to know that something is done by AI and if it was
Yes.
done with good intention?
Yeah, so I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule, and maybe I'm sort of making this up, but one thing I've noticed is that with the AI images, oftentimes there's a look, and so I can now when I'm on the internet see an AI image and go, oh, that was AI. Like I know that was probably Mid-Journey. It sort of has a look. I don't want to say that necessarily it might look too perfect, but there's something about AI where when you compare it to what a person could do, you could sort of tell a little bit, right? Particularly with the text, when I got an email that was totally written by a bot and I read it, I thought, am I being scammed? And I think it was because the text was a little too perfect. It
Mm.
didn't really seem like it was from a person. And so then I copied and pasted it, put it in one of those websites that tells me if a bot wrote it or not. And it came out that it did. This was actually a real person who was playing around with AI, which I was really intrigued by. Because I thought, well, that's awesome. They were using AI to write this email. That's great. And so I guess my thinking would be if something strikes you as being a little too perfect, then maybe that could be a flag. I have seen some of the images though that where I think one of them was like the Pope wearing a leather jacket, and it looked so real that that's when I realized like I could be deceived by this. The picture just looks so real.
Mhm.
And so I mean another thing, but I know we say this even without AI, is to always look at content online, with a certain healthy degree of skepticism, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of people have asked, what's that
Yeah.
website you entered the email to determine if it was written by a bot?
Yeah, so I don't remember. I literally just Googled, I believe it's AI like text checker. And
Oh.
then there were like a whole bunch will come up. And then of course I tried to click on one that I think looks like it's safe and it's not going to give my computer a virus, right? So that's always a thing, right? But there's a whole bunch out there, and then also along those lines, I know that there's more and more um AI text checkers actually for education because professors and teachers are using them to see if students are, writing like their papers with it. And that's a whole nother thing, right? But yeah, so and the good thing is that it is free. You don't have to pay for those tools.
Mhm. Is there an AI tool that can identify what objects are on pictures and put it in a list, like an inventory?
So that kind of thing is like exactly what AI, the training models are doing. So absolutely, like those kind of things are like what the engineers are working on. Is there a tool that can specifically perform that task? I would have to go on top tools, AI.com and like look and see if I could find that. But that kind of a task is 100% like if you were to pick up an AI book and learn more about, what does AI do? What
Mhm.
is it doing? What is it capable of doing? Those kind of simple things is 100% what the engineers are working on.
Mhm. Mhm. I want to go back to something you said about Midjourney,
Yeah.
because I know that you had created some beautiful images for a project that we did together, and then
Yeah.
uh but the copyright wasn't really spelled out clearly to us at that time. So has that changed?
No, the copyright for Midjourney is that you share. Midjourney says that you have copyright, but then you share copyright with Midjourney. But
Mhm.
it's almost like the same thing when you read the fine print, where when you submit content to Facebook or YouTube or any social media platform, because you maintain copyright of whatever you submit, but
Mhm.
then that platform is saying that they have some copyright privileges too. So in a way, what it's doing, well, at least on social media, is it's saying that other people, like what in the case of YouTube, other people can take your YouTube video and embed it on their website without asking you for permission. And this is actually why I believe like when Pinterest was first started, a lot of creators and artists were really upset about it because they were worried that somebody would could be posting their art on Pinterest and then not really giving them, like attribution, but then also maybe even if you gave them attribution, maybe they just don't want their stuff on Pinterest.
Mhm.
I feel like some of that backlash just kind of died down over the years because people have realized it's just good marketing. But I totally understand um sort of the issue like the people could have like from a business perspective. And I also seen as I've worked on more and more digital projects, like companies, organizations really deciding not to put their videos on YouTube and they'll use like Vimeo or something else
Mhm.
because they recognize that they're sharing copyright privileges with YouTube.
Mm. That seems to be a trend though. Like, and sometimes, you
Yeah,
just don't even know what you're agreeing to.
yeah.
Um, Evelyn says, do you have to make an account on Chatbot to use those tools, i.e. AI text checker? But it sounded like you just Googled it.
I just Googled it and then it
Okay.
was literally like you don't have to create an account. Like some of them you might, but a lot of them literally you just plug it in. It reminds me a lot, believe it or not, of like Grammarly, like the free version. I actually with Grammarly, I think you do have to create an account even for free. But with this, I didn't have to. I literally just copied and pasted and it told me that a bot had created it. Yeah.
Interesting. Eva has one last question. We're working on
Yeah.
logo designs and having a hard time finding elements showing representing inclusive community of people with disabilities together with people without symbols for belonging. Are there any any AI tools that you know of, drawing tools that would have more elements that we could use in that kind of design?
Yes. So there are um I would say though, so so this is interesting because I have I've done a lot of projects and I have a lot of interest in accessibility and disability and all of that. What I'll say just about AI in general is that AI doesn't do it can be biased and it doesn't do a very good job, particularly with disability. And so one thing I have noticed about it, um, and I'll use Midjourney as an example. And of course, when I say this, I'm not really saying like don't ever use these tools, but this is just a thing. Is that with Midjourney, if you type in something like child in a wheelchair, the images that come up are for me were almost like upsetting or like it's just because what I kept seeing over and over again were children in wheelchairs that looked like they were homeless or looked like they were dirty. Like it was really strange. Um, and I feel like I actually can do a better job with Midjourney with like diversity because I can actually ask it for somebody of a particular background and it will give it to me. And that person doesn't look dirty. Um, we have to remember that AI is legitimately pulling, like some of its bias is actually not from the AI, the way the AI is programmed. Some of the bias that's happening is because it's using data that was created by humans, and humans, unfortunately, can be very biased and prejudiced, and we don't live in a perfect world, right? And so I think with disability, like I would not use a tool, like I would not go to Midjourney and use um Midjourney to like create me even like a draft. I would just skip that. So what I would do is just use a tool, like a drawing tool that's maybe using some AI or even just create it on your own. I was actually just telling Mina that there's let me look it up, see if I can find it. Um, there's a tool. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but I'm can I get I'm just wondering, can I get back to yeah. So there's a tool that's being used more and more for like drawing and creating logos. And it's actually, I believe it was only costs $12, but you have to have a Apple device. Um, and it's just like the name's like not coming to me right now, but it's more powerful than Canva, but then it just doesn't have like it doesn't have the expense or the subscription that the Adobe products would have. So I'm thinking about using it. Um, and then honestly, some of the research I would do for like a logo for, disability accessibility, I honestly would probably like pull up Google images and, start getting inspiration for, go on Pinterest. Like I actually, for this kind of project, I actually might skip AI, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the tool having a little bit of AI in it. I just would not go to an AI image generator. I feel like it's just gonna fail you. Yeah.
So any good, really graphic designer could do something that that would serve your purpose. Maybe not, maybe in using like AI, but maybe probably not.
Yeah. And
You
the other
did
thing too
mention
is
that.
there's some really great design tools that graphic designers could use more and more. If you like I said, if you go on the top aitools.com and you look at I believe there's like a graphic design drawing section, you'll find some. There's also another, this is more for web design and mobile design. Um, there's another tool that I found called framer.ai, and it's for web design and mobile design, but I believe it had some like cool like color tools in it. And so I've been playing around with that more and more. So you might want to try that one. Because I think you can, if I remember correctly, I think you could do some like basic logos in there. The other thing too is the UIZard um one that I showed in the beginning of my presentation. That one has like a lot of like ability to do drawings and sketches and prototyping and stuff. So you could also try that one too.
Okay. Wow. Oh my gosh, this hour has flown by. I didn't even realize. All of a sudden I looked over, I was like, it's 10:59. Jennifer, thank you so much. Again, putting this in a way that we can really understand it and giving us a real view of it, not just like sort of like a doomsday or, like this is a perfect tool type of thing. So I really appreciate your candidness and your just how you can make it so usable for people. So thank you. I really appreciate you doing this again.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me back. And this is always so much fun for me to talk more about AI and these tools. And yeah, thank you.
Excellent. So for people who are here, I'll send out the video link and your slides in a little bit. And I really appreciate everybody coming and asking your questions and paying attention and learning with me as I learn from Jennifer. So have a wonderful morning, everybody. I hope to see you again soon. Bye, Jennifer. We'll be in touch.
Bye.